Have you ever been scrolling through TikTok, which I know we all have, and noticed a video displaying the ADHD test? These tests had you run down 9 mind games, had you take tests, and self-diagnose yourself. Well, me and my team decided to put together a series of videos we found on TikTok.
Wait, here's a test to see if you have ADHD.
Unfortunately, these can be very misleading.
Our research question was, can self-diagnosis accurately diagnose ADHD using online resources? My name is Dylan Wachtel.
I'm Norla Gailey.
I'm Tarini Vandy.
So the way we approached this was the role of social media algorithms, social identity theory, and the stigma and barriers to professional care.
What is ADHD? Well, ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder characterized by inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. Some common symptoms of ADHD are poor working memory, anxiety, absent-mindedness, poor sense of time, and also people with ADHD are often easily distracted. What is self-diagnosis? Self-diagnosis is when you diagnose yourself, obviously, without professional evaluation. You can often do this through things like BuzzFeed quizzes or maybe even videos that you see online. Some benefits and risks of self-diagnosis. Benefits of self-diagnosis of ADHD. A benefit is that it brings awareness to these symptoms and that it might even lead them to seek professional help. The risks are misdiagnosis, which could lead to something called confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is when an individual often seeks information that supports their belief without considering alternative beliefs. It's when they only take in information that they want to hear instead of taking in information that they don't want to hear about themselves. This risk could often lead them to going to the doctor and diagnosing themselves with ADHD. These are some common drugs that are given to people with ADHD. One of them, which is Adderall, which has not very great side effects and also has a risk for abuse.
When people often think of ADHD, they'll think of excessive talking, fidgeting, difficulty standing still, and even difficulty with staying quiet. But unfortunately, that's not the case. It is much more complex than that. According to the University of Minnesota, it states an ADHD brain has structural abnormalities, which leads to a lower production of neurotransmitters, which is the main cause for an ADHD brain. And over here, you can see ADHD is highest in the top 10 diseases discussed on social media. Furthermore, social media takes a big role in this. When you search up hashtag ADHD on TikTok, tens and thousands of videos will show up. And unfortunately, most of them are misinformation. Creators will place this hashtag under the videos to keep us engaged, keep us guessing, and keep us wondering if we have ADHD or not, which leads to more misinformation.
Social identity theory. It is the idea that we all want to be part of a group and have a sense of belonging. It is the idea that we derive our self-concept from being part of groups. This can be seen especially for members with ADHD. They go and look online on websites such as Reddit, where they find different groups and communities where they can share their experiences and feel that they are not alone and have that sense of belonging. This is great, but when we tie this into self-diagnosis, we see the dangers of self-diagnosing yourself, because you wanting to conform to a certain group and you suspect you have ADHD, you over-exaggerate certain traits in order to conform to the group and feel included. So to further understand social identity theory, we have to understand social identity formation, which is when adolescents categorize themselves into social groups based on shared behaviors, cognition, and attitudes, as well as the exposure to ADHD-related content on websites like TikTok that we showed earlier, which elicit you to want to adopt that role identity. Additionally, we have role conformity, which is where individuals strive for consistency in role performance and seek peer approval for conforming perceived behaviors. Social media approval provides a sense of belonging and well-being, and those are the dangers to self-diagnosis, which is why you must go seek professional diagnosis. But there are barriers to professional diagnosis, such as social pressure and accessibility. For social pressure, there are negative public attitudes, such as the general negative connotation to seeking mental help. Only recently, that's been in a more positive light. So that causes individuals to not want to seek professional help out of fear of being judged. Additionally, self-diagnosis offers a perceived safe space so you don't feel the need to go out and find that professional diagnosis because you feel you've already found your answer. But the main one is accessibility, which is when you simply do not have access to a professional psychiatric assessment. So this limited access to healthcare leads to going online for for health information. And so when you do that, you're exposed to the world of online information, and that could cause you to reach wrong conclusions, and that's very dangerous.
The inaccuracy of self-diagnosis. The Journal of Psychiatric Practice states that symptoms such as inattention and hyperactivity often overlap with conditions like anxiety and depression. Conditions that overlap, such as anxiety disorders, depression, sleeping disorders, and learning disabilities, could affect the way that you perceive what you have. Someone with anxiety could believe someone with anxiety that has an inability to focus on something could think that they have ADHD due to the fact that they can't focus on it, which is a symptom of ADHD.
So in conclusion, self-diagnosis can be tempting. You want to go out, you want to explore, you want to see what the possibilities are, but that can be negative. People in the comments are discussing with each other what symptoms they have in a positive light, but overall, self-diagnosis shouldn't be a discussion on there. That relates to social identity theory. They'll discuss with each other, and that leads to more misinformation. So, of course, you can't always go online, and you need professional care, but some people can't access that. They can't pay for it, they can't access it, and there's stigmas to it. You should always go to a healthcare physician. You should get a rundown and an assessment, and you should get a proper management so you know if you have ADHD or not. Although the online resources can help because there's a lot of people talking and you want to go and diagnose yourself, you want to see if you have it, and that can give you a sense of like self because you can find out if you have it or not, it still always shouldn't be used. And in our answer to our project is that no, it should not be used, and you should always go to a healthcare physician.
Thank you.
All right, 3 questions. Trini, we'll start with you and work our way across. Trini, can you give me one example, give me one specific way your thinking changed as a result of looking at Dylan's IRR?
Okay, when I was looking at Dylan's IRR, which was mostly about the self-diagnosis, his was more positive towards self-diagnosis, while mine was about doctor's perspective or a psychiatric perspective, which was more negative towards self-diagnosis and always told you to look at doctors before self-diagnosing.
Okay, and Dylan? What's an example of a compelling argument from one of your peers' papers you decided not to use, and then why?
To be honest, because there's such few of us, we didn't really develop another argument outside of what we used, so it all tied together.
Okay. Nora, describe an argument from one of your peers' IRRs that makes you think differently about the solution that you guys came up with.
So all of us kind of had the same conclusion. We all agreed that it shouldn't be used for self-diagnosis, and we already tied to that prior, so none of them changed my conclusion.